Hi everyone, and thank you for joining us for today's webcast, 2019 Trends, IoT and AI in the Supply Chain. My name is Kaylin Hensley, Marketing Coordinator with GSI. I'm also very pleased to welcome our main presenter, Tom Gabriel. Tom is a Senior Solutions Consultant at GSI and has over 25 years of industry and JD Edwards experience. He has managed implementations, upgrades, business process redesign projects, and more. Tom is very well known in the JD Edwards Oracle community, and he presents at numerous industry conferences and is one of the main presenters for GSI's webcasts and educational workshops. Tom has his Bachelor of Science in Accounting and Business Administration from UConn School of Business. Now, before we get started, I wanted to give you a chance to review our Safe Harbor statement. Now for a quick overview of today's meeting, which will last about 60 minutes. First, we would like to take a moment to go over a couple of housekeeping items, as well as provide a brief company overview. Then we'll turn it over to Tom to get into our main presentation and demo, which will last about 40 minutes. Next, we'll take a minute to go over our upcoming educational events, and then we will wrap up with a 10-minute Q&A session. If you would like to submit a question, you can do so through the questions panel at the bottom of the GoToWebinar console window located on the right side of your screen. Please note that questions will be answered at the end of the presentation, so if you would like to minimize your GoToWebinar console during the presentation, just click the right facing arrow key on the top left of the console. Clicking the left arrow key will return the console so that you can input your questions. Now I'd like to give you a brief overview of GSI. GSI is a full-service JD Edwards consulting organization. We're an Oracle Platinum partner that was founded in 2004 and now has over 100 employees. We have offices nationwide and are recognized on the Inc. 5000 list of fastest growing companies in the U.S. GSI specializes in project consulting, managed services, and cloud and hosting services, with all of our services backed with a 100% guarantee. GSI also provides a broad spectrum of business, functional, and technical consulting services for Oracle NetSuite, Oracle Cloud, Salesforce, ServiceNow, and other enterprise applications. In addition, we are a product development company that has many popular products, including Genius, which is our advanced monitoring and performance analytics solution for JD Edwards or any business-critical system on any platform. Genesis is our load stress testing application for system design, validation, or expansion for JD Edwards or any web-based business-critical system. G-Shield is our comprehensive security solution for JD Edwards, including password reset and 2FA authentication. Rapid Reconciler, which allows you to effectively manage your inventory in transit, and R&V reconciliation processes for any version of E1 or World. And Rapid Approval is a Salesforce App Exchange solution that streamlines the approval request process. And now I'd like to turn things over to Tom for our main presentation and demo.
Thank you so much, Kaylin. Just let me know when you can see my screen, and I'll be good to go.
All right. We can see your screen now.
All right. Thank you so much, and welcome everybody to today's webcast, 2019 Trends, IoT and Artificial Intelligence in the Supply Chain. I'd like to start by saying that a lot of the content we're going to be discussing today has come from some known parties that your organization should be familiar and comfortable with: Gartner, Deloitte, Forbes, KPMG, and the Material Handling Institute, which is a consortium of organizations that work in the supply chain. It's an organization that if you are not a member, it's worthwhile to become a member, because they do a lot of good things and a lot of presentation and knowledge around the supply chain industry, okay? So with that, let's talk about what those organizations are saying for 2019. What they're saying is that the technology trends that are evolving, the strategic trends that are evolving, are going to have a great impact on your organization, and they're going to disrupt the way that consumers, businesses, and people interact. But even though they are going to be a significant disruption within the organizations, they're going to provide you with a great opportunity to leapfrog your competitors and to, in effect, consume more of the market and be able to garner more of your industry because of what they provide you. At the same time, we have to understand that your enterprise architect, those people in your organization that are responsible to say, how should my architecture be set up within my organization? And those technology leaders, they need to make sure that they stay on top of these trends so that they can understand where opportunities may exist. They can understand how a potential threat may affect their organization. And they need to understand that these technologies are going to be a great way for you to create a competitive advantage in your space. So, what we're talking about today is artificial intelligence, which is really blowing up the digital enterprise and digital business. Virtually every application we see, every type of service we're involved in, the Internet of Things, which is basically, consuming all of these things, all of this is going to help automate and augment the way that your business runs, the way your applications run, and how your people interact and how your consumers and other humans interact with your organization. So we have to understand that the way we look and the way we interact with this new technology, we have to have a mind shift because there's a radical transformation that's happening. Conversational platforms, augmented, virtual, mixed realities, all of these things are going to now start to play a more natural and a more immersive experience for the people within this digital space. So we have to understand that we have to start looking and acting and thinking differently. The way that digital now is representing things, it's changing our organizational processes, right? It's used now to monitor, analyze, and control everything in our world and environments. So, artificial intelligence, IoT, all of this immersive experience is setting the stage for our organizations to become more open, more connected, and more coordinated amongst the world around us. And, any of you that have been within the supply chain for any amount of time, you can see within the last 30 years how ERP systems have evolved, how closed systems have now become so open. And with the introduction of IoT and AI, that's going to become even bigger and broader. So we need, as an organization, to put in place a formal mechanism, a formal process within our organization to look at all of these trends, understand what they're doing and how they can be leveraged within our organization. And we need to prioritize these so that we can start to implement those that provide us with the greatest amount of impact on our business and create for us that competitive advantage. We can't sit back in today's day and age and wait, because if we do, technology is changing so quickly that we're going to be so far behind, we won't be able to catch up. So all of this digital stuff is part of a broader term that we began and we started talking about several months ago, called the intelligent digital mesh. And that intelligent digital mesh is made up of three themes. The first theme, which we're going to talk about today, is the intelligent theme, which is artificial intelligence, machine learning, how that's creeping into everything that we're doing and every new technology that's coming out. And we're going to talk about how that artificial intelligence is really the next greatest thing for all technology providers all the way through the next 3 years to 2022. And that if we as an organization look and use that AI for a well-scoped and targeted purpose, we're going to become, as an organization, more nimble, more flexible, more insightful, and we're going to be able to create an organization that becomes more autonomous and less reliant on other parts of the business or other industries or vendors for us to do our work. So again, that's the first part of the intelligent digital mesh. And the next part is the digital thing, which we'll talk about in the future, right? How you get the digital world and the physical world to work together, and how you can consume all of that data that's coming around you and through your organization, how you could turn around and now leveraging AI and IoT start to become a more digital organization. And lastly, the mesh is about that interconnectivity between everything else. But again, those themes we'll talk about in subsequent webinar sessions. Regardless, when you talk the intelligent digital mesh, you have to understand that there's two things that transcend all of that, and they're very important. The first is ethics and privacy, right? You as an organization have to become compliant. And what those pundits have found is that within the next 2 years, organizations that do not comply for privacy protection, you'll end up spending 100% more in cost to be compliant than people that are already doing that today. And by being compliant, they don't necessarily mean just doing what you have to do. They mean doing what you should do, the ethical part of this process. It's not simply enough to say, hey, I complied. You have to also layer in the ethics behind it and do the right thing. Lastly, you're going to see that the next broad trend is going to be quantum computing. And this is going to go on for the next, God knows how many years, 5 to 7 years. But what quantum computing is going to allow us to do is now, instead of looking at things as singular decisions and looking at data and making a decision, looking at data and making a decision, quantum computing now is going to allow us to have multiple threads going on at one time and having our analysis and having our outcomes predicted based upon all of that happening at the same time instead of one individual thread. So again, what should we do? Gartner is saying that your organization, you have to understand that they're going to have a broad impact over your industry. And while it may not yet have happened, it's happening in the next several years, and you could have a significant disruption in your organization if you don't start laying the groundwork today. All right? You're going to see that within 4 years, those technologies that you think today are very immature and not yet robust enough to implement in your business, you're going to see that by 2023, they're going to be so mature that it's going to create a tipping point in your organization where if you don't get on board and you don't embrace that technology, your organization will be leapfrogged by your competitors that do. So Gartner suggests that you examine the technologies that are available, IoT, AI, and others, and you look at those technologies and understand the impact it has on your business, and take the ones that are going to enhance your existing product line or create a new product line or a new business model, and also prepare yourself how the rest of digital business is going to affect your industry, okay? So again, just let's start making sure we understand the fact that we need to do these things. So let's start with Internet of Things, IoT, and let's just start with the basics and, what exactly is the Internet of Things? The Internet of Things is basically an interconnection using the Internet of some type of computing device that is embedded in everyday objects or things or people or animals that enable that device to send and receive data to other things. So it's a system of interrelated devices, mechanical, digital machines, as I said, an object, an animal. I mean, think of those of you that have a dog and you put in a chip inside the dog at your veterinarian. And now if your dog becomes lost, you can track it via GPS. That's an IoT device. It's something that has a unique identifier and the ability to transfer data over the internet without requiring any type of human to human or human to computer interaction. It just does its thing. All right. So connecting any device that can be on and off to the internet and or to each other. And examples are your cell phone, a coffee maker, washing machines, headphones, lamps. Any of you that have an Echo Dot, or any of you that have, any of those other Google devices in your homes. Now, not only does it apply to the mechanical thing in total, but each component of that machine can also have its own IoT connection, providing additional information, such as the jet engine of an airplane, or maybe a drill bit on an oil rig. So it doesn't have to be just the one big unit. It can be multiple components within the unit. Now, Gartner thinks by next year there's going to be over 26 billion of these IoT devices transmitting data. But yet, if you talk to other people, they think that by 2020 there's going to be over 100 billion. So when you think about 100 billion devices sending information and you as an organization needing to digest that information, hence you want to start thinking about artificial intelligence. You also want to think about quantum computing. You need to think about the things that are going to help you go through that information and work more efficiently. So, Internet of Things, it's just a giant network of connected things that also includes people. So it can be people to people, people to things, or things to things. So when we look at IoT, what type of things can be used in the supply chain for IoT? Well, Walmart started this many, many years ago, putting RTLS devices on pallets so that you can see when your pallet gets onto a boat, and then the boat gets to the dock, and then it gets loaded onto the truck. You always have a sense of where that is. Now think about going further with that information and building artificial intelligence, which we're going to talk about in a minute, that helps you understand, okay, now that I'm getting this information from IoT, I know when my true delivery time is. I can predict now what my manufacturing runtime is going to be. I can now, for my sales, say to my customer, this is when you can predict your goods to be there. They're all going to play hand in hand together. Another example is maybe you're in the consumer, produce industry, and you're storing your produce in a warehouse, and you want to make sure that you can minimize spoilage. So you have some type of IoT device on your, case of produce that's monitoring your HVAC within the warehouse and can send messages back and forth to say lower the temperature. Maybe you have a misting room where mist, starts to keep produce, wet versus letting it dry out. All of those things can happen. What about your guy on the floor that's picking goods? Let's say you don't use robotics to pick goods. Let's say you still have somebody in a forklift. But what happens if that forklift has the capability to actually see the picking slip that you have to pick and understands where everything is and can maximize the route so that they can turn around and become more efficient in how they're going throughout the warehouse to pick the goods. It's no longer left up to the individual on how to go pick. You can have an IoT device that goes right to the forklift that says, hey, this is what you need to do. Now, this one, yes, it gets to a little bit of big brother, but at the same time, what happens if your badge or some type of wearable that you have on your person, when you walk through the factory floor and you can scan in, clock out for production time to more accurately reflect the cost of your time against a lot of goods or whatever, you can accurately get your production time and more accurately get your cost to your product. Now, at the same time, we can also understand for an individual what process is taking longer than other processes. Does this individual potentially have some type of issue doing this type of process? Should they be moved somewhere else to become more efficient? Do they not interact well with a specific device? So a lot of different things that you can do by simply having your employees be able to have the warehouse know where they are and what they're doing. And at the same time, what happens if you have a bunch of printers and label machines and things like that on the warehouse floor, and all of a sudden they're running low on toner or running low on paper? Wouldn't it be nice to either have them A, replenish the stock in the warehouse, and B, send a note off to the repair shop or whatever to say, hey, listen, I'm running low on toner, you need to come and fill me up so that I don't have any downtime? A lot of different things you can do. Naturally, the biggest one that people have been talking about is monitoring your vehicles, monitoring your trucks, so that they can comply with regulatory requirements. Make sure your people aren't driving too many hours in the day. We have a client of ours that delivers propane up in Northeast United States. And what they need to do is they need to track the number of hours they're within each state so that they can pay the appropriate tax within each state. So they use IoT along with geopositioning to say, hey, today this truck was in Maine for 3 hours and it was in Vermont for 4 hours. So now they know what they need to do and pay for taxes within each one of those states. Here's some examples, right? Your person. How many of us, in the lower middle, we know Life Alert? That's been around for decades, right? But that's an IoT device. How many of you have a Fitbit watch or some other type of watch? The one I like is the one on medication now. They are actually making pills that have sensors in them that actually will start to dissolve at an X rate, so that you can take your pill, but you get your medicine throughout the day because the pill itself is letting the medicine go. We have things in your home. All of us are using some form of smart device like this in our home, right? We have things in the city. How many of us now have those kiosks for parking? And when you go to major venues, those of you that go to Collaborate in Las Vegas, and you pull in the parking lot and there's all the little green lights or red lights for open and closed parking spaces, right? When we talk about you and your businesses, we know about maintenance and repair, but again, as I said earlier, it doesn't have to be just on the machine in total. It could be on various other components within the machine, right? You can have you're going to see in a minute when we talk about it, replenishment on the shelf. And you're going to see how Walmart and Target are utilizing robotics and IoT and artificial intelligence to turn around and make sure that their shelves are always stocked with product. So a lot of different uses for IoT. Last but not least, the environment, right? Making sure, I talked about tracking your dog with the veterinarian in the chip, right? We talked about, being able to monitor pollution levels and being able to report on them for statutory requirements. California is big on that, right? Emission control. All right, let's now talk about artificial intelligence. And what is artificial intelligence? That is the theory and concept of the development of a system that is able to perform those tasks that normally took some type of human intelligence to do. And it includes the fact that you visually perceive things or recognize some type of speech. You're able to make a decision. You're able to communicate cross languages. So artificial intelligence is something, a computer system that is doing those things that normally took human intelligence to do. It's the simulation of that by a machine, more likely than not, some form of computer system. And when we talk artificial intelligence, you're going to see that the future generations of artificial intelligence are going to include some form of learning. The fact that when that thing got information, it didn't process it based upon some algorithms that were written, but it processes it based upon its historic understanding and its surroundings and all of those factors together, using some form of reasoning, right, and self-correction. And when we talk about artificial intelligence, there's two types. There's one type that's called weak artificial intelligence or narrow artificial intelligence, and that's a system that was designed and coded just to perform a particular task, a repetitive task, over and over and over. So your personal assistant like Siri, right, or Alexa, those are things like weak AI. They're asked a question, they search a bunch of data and regurgitate an answer. They're not learning, they're not storing anything, they're just turning around and saying, this is what you wanted to know. Now, strong AI or artificial general intelligence, that's a system that also builds in some general human cognitive ability. And when that system is asked something to do and it's unfamiliar to that system is able to learn and go through all of the history and all the other knowledge to find a solution without any other additional human intervention. Now, as organizations, we look at AI and we say, my God, it's the coding and it's a lot of work to understand what do we need to do, how do we do it, that kind of thing. Well, as is everything else, and as we saw in an earlier slide, the major technology vendors out there have recognized that organizations don't have the bandwidth or capability to start doing this. So what have they done? They're offering now artificial intelligence as a service. You as an organization or as an individual, you can sign up and you can explore all the different types of artificial intelligence that you can do within your organization through vendors such as Amazon or IBM Watson or Microsoft. In effect, they have pre-built artificial intelligence solutions based upon typical industry situations where you as an organization now can outsource your artificial intelligence service. So again, understanding that we need to do it, understanding we may not have the bandwidth or knowledge internally to do it, that shouldn't stop us. So lastly, when we talk artificial intelligence, Aaron Heinz, the professor of biology, integrative biology and computer science and engineering at Michigan, he classifies artificial intelligence into 4 discrete areas. The first one he calls a reactive machine, and any of you that play chess or happen to remember this, but back in the 90s, Gary Kasparov and IBM Deep Blue played chess matches. I would like to see a tennis match with IBM Deep Blue. They played chess, and Deep Blue was able to recognize the chessboard, recognize the pieces, but it analyzed based on a lot of data what would be the next strategic move I should make? And so basically, that's all it did. It turned around and it said, hey, this is what I need to do. A reactive machine, a very narrow purpose, can't really be applied to anything else because it's meant to do just what it's meant to do. Aaron says that there's limited memory systems that can use a past experience to predict or inform of a future event or decision. And some of those are your decision-making function in a self-driving car, right? Such as when you're driving and all of a sudden you're more than or less than 10 feet away, it's going to start slowing the car down. So that is a limited memory system, but the observations and what it does are not stored anywhere for future use. It's always constantly being redone. The next kind of system is theory of mind. That's really a psychology term, and it says that I'm going to try to understand that, you know, everybody else is different. Everybody else has their own desires and intentions, and, you know, based on the decisions I make, it's going to impact all of that. It's going to turn around, it being the artificial intelligence, is going to try and wrap itself around all of those things and then come up with what it should do. Again, this type of AI is not out there, nor is self-awareness. And a self-aware AI system is the pinnacle of artificial intelligence. In effect, they have their own belief of self. They believe that they are like you, and they just understand their current state, understand their surroundings. They're like a kid. You know, they learn as they get older and they consume more information, and then they can act upon others and what others are doing and understand what they need to do. And again, self-aware AI, it's not out there yet. Oh, I'm sorry. So I want to point this slide out to you. Cognitive computing and artificial intelligence are not the same, right? When you think about the technology, they're pretty much similar in what they do, but cognitive computing also adds a sense of sentiment analysis. So, you know, it thinks a little bit more than artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence is just looking at data, analyzing data, and moving on. The capabilities, you know, cognitive thinking, it simulates human thought, where AI is just finding patterns in data. AI is automating a process where cognitive computing is literally augmenting human capabilities. And when it talks about the industries, you can see that more human-facing industries are using cognitive computing than those that just need to get data analytics and information. So let's turn around, and examples of artificial intelligence are delivery dates, analyzing variability and lead times and logistics, provider and performance, that RTLS stuff, your ability in the company to make better scheduling decisions, right? Because now you can consume more factors that you can analyze. As I said earlier, ERP has been around for a long time, but yet the amount of data that we're provided for now is a lot more robust than before. You can look at historical shipping and manufacturing details, and you can now look at external data like weather patterns and things like that to be able to predict a more accurate delivery time for your consumer. That fourth bullet is important in my mind. You now can promise your consumer against a predicted inventory level, not a planned inventory level. ERP systems before, the way they planned your delivery date, the information they took into account, gave them a planned date. Now with all these other variables you can analyze, you can predict when you're going to deliver. So while 50% of the information we get today in our business is still by fax, email, or phone, your supply chain is not really the first area organizations look to develop artificial intelligence, right? The fact that people are still communicating via those old mechanisms, organizations are saying, hey, I really don't need AI. But Forrester said that AI in the supply chain is way behind your marketing and product management and customer support. Only 13% of your companies use AI in the logistic area. All right. So again, we're going to see in a minute why that is. Common areas, we talk personal assistance, image recognition. This is what I said with Target and Walmart. They have robotics that go throughout their stores looking at the images of what's on the shelf to understand how they need to restock and what they need to order from their vendors. You can use it for price setting, right? And while artificial intelligence itself will provide you that, analytical and transformative, understanding, with IoT, when you put it all together, in effect, you can now create a self-aware, self-governing, self-determining supply chain. But as with everything in life, garbage in, garbage out, right? If there's bad data being fed from IoT or artificial intelligence, then that bad information, you're going to see that that's a potential downfall for your organization. So regardless of what you do, IoT, artificial intelligence, don't think really big. Start small. Understand what can you do today? What can I do, baby steps to get my organization involved? But at the same time, don't do nothing, right? And you got to understand your customers' needs. You also need to understand that your organization in and of itself has a skill gap and a workforce shortage. Because as George Press said, we no longer need people to move boxes, but we need people to understand that when the robots do move a box, what does that mean to the business? And what does all that data mean to me? And last but not least, we talked about that ethics and privacy. You have to build trust and security, because now with technology, your supply chain can be on 24/7. So I just want to close with a few examples right here, right? If you look at a survey that was done in 2014 and it predicted what was going to happen by 2018, you can see that pretty much, IoT, sensors, things like that, didn't even come close to hitting the mark of what they predicted in 2018. But if you look now at today and what's projected 5 years from now, look at how those top 7 technologies, at least 70% of all businesses are going to embrace some form of that technology, right? With IoT being upwards of 85%. IoT, today, 22% of companies, within 1 to 2 years, another 28. So within 2 years, 50% of organizations will have some form of IoT. Within 3 to 5 years, 90%, okay, 80%. How are they going to use it? Getting better analytics, being able to serve their customer, right? Being able to collaborate so that they can turn around and get to market their product and what they need to do. And you can see at the bottom, AI is still something that is not being embraced by a lot of organizations. But if we look at AI, today, roughly 6% of organizations that were surveyed, but another 300% increase within the next 1 to 2 years. And within 3 to 5 years, over 50, almost 50% of organizations are going to have some form of AI in their organization. So the barriers, if we look at the bottom of the chart, clear business case of what to do with the technology and a lack of an understanding of that technology in and of itself. If you look at IoT and you look at artificial intelligence, almost 50% of that is because of those two things, the business case and the understanding of the technology. So to look at it differently, It's not being adopted. Again, 36% IoT because they don't know the technology, 36% because they don't understand how to position it, how to make a business case. And again, AI, 29% the technology, 26% because they do not know how to position that in the organization. So how do we prepare ourselves? We have to understand that while the challenge is on the customer demand and hiring the right people, as a company, partner with a vendor that understands the technology and the benefit. Recruit those people that are going to have the skill set you need for your future needs. Make sure that your workforce is continually trained on the latest technologies, and more importantly, on the lower right, you need to invest and set aside dollars to implement this. IT today more than ever needs to start building a nest egg so that they can increase and include this technology. Because you're going to see that when we talk about these technologies, finding talent, hiring talent, retaining talent, when you ask organizations, the talent is really the biggest issue they have. And you have to understand that if you look at the fifth line down, managing generational working habits. My day and age, the way we work is a lot different than the way people are working today. You need to have that technology and you need to have that capability for the workforce that's entering the world today. So what kind of skills do you need? Well, like we said, we don't need somebody to move the box. We need somebody that's strategic and can solve problems, somebody that's analytical, visual modeling. We need somebody that has a general overall business acumen and is cross-functional. We need more generalists than we do, people that are just honed in on one area. Those are the things we need. That's the skill set we need moving forward. So when you look at your C-level executive, your managers, they have those concerns, right? But notice the second line, they are concerned with the fact that you have people within your business that understand the supply chain and how this technology can help them. So that's a concern of almost 40% of the executives that are out there. So IoT and AI, when they were asked in the next 3 years, which one's going to drive the greatest business transformation? What's going to enable the next indispensable consumer technology? What's going to be the one to drive the greatest benefit to my life, society, the environment, and my business? You can see that IoT and AI is up there. They're the top two. So, supply chain of today, very flat, very linear. But we're going to see later in subsequent webinars when we talk about the intelligent digital mesh and we talk about blockchain, the future of the supply chain is an all open, collaborative, sharing type of network. So balance your labor versus automation. Find your little sweet spot, okay, this little green dot in the middle, so that you maximize the labor that's required in your investment in automation. You want to make sure that digital is going to drive your business, and you have to keep refreshing your technology to stay ahead of the game. And technology is continually changing, so your leadership has to adopt the mindset of a continuous next sort of strategy. That what I'm doing today is not good for 10 years. What I'm doing today is the groundwork for next year and the year after and the year after that, because it's constantly building on itself. You need to foster perpetual innovation, integration, and delivery, okay? That's what your organizations need to do. The future, smart devices, delivering digital services, intelligent digital mesh. Your EAs and technology innovation leaders need to exploit that technology. You need to explore where those devices can help you. You need to educate, engage, and create ideas with your senior leadership and others in your organization. You need to develop and deploy a right mix. Again, don't think big, start with baby steps. You need to understand that you have to support these initiatives. It's the way of the world and the way people are going. You need to constantly learn and monitor what's happening and what's going to be out there in the marketplace. And you have to identify your real world problems. So with that, I'm going to toss it back over to Kaylin. Are you still with me?
Thanks, Tom.
You're welcome, Kaylin. There you go. It's all you.
All right, give me just a minute. All right, now I'd like to cover a few follow-up items and then we'll move into our Q&A section of the webcast. Our webcast today is part of GSI's free ongoing educational webcast series on JD Edwards. Our upcoming webcasts are listed on the screen. To view our most up-to-date schedule, please visit getgsi.com/webcasts. GSI provides extensive free educational resources for the JD Edwards community, including our weekly educational webcasts, monthly newsletter called the GSI Insider, online resource center where you can access our on-demand webcasts, white papers, etc., and on-site and virtual workshops. If you would like to sign up for our weekly email reminders for upcoming webcasts, our monthly newsletter, or create an account, to access our resource center, go to getgsi.com, go to platforms on the main menu, select JD Edwards, and then select the appropriate link on the left. I would like to remind everyone that if you would still like to submit a question, you can do so using the questions panel in the GoToWebinar console window on the right side of your screen. If you minimized your console earlier, please click the left arrow to redisplay the questions panel. All right, and it appears that our main questions are regarding whether people will get an update from this webcast at the end, and yes, you will be receiving a link to our website where you can access this webcast and you can be able to access the presentation as well. As a follow-up from today's webcast, we ask that you complete a short 1-minute survey when you exit. You will be receiving an email with a link to our resource center on our website where you can access the recording from today's webcast, as well as a copy of the presentation. After today's webcast, we will do the drawing for the $25 Amazon gift card. Anyone who attended the entire webcast will be eligible. We will notify the winner. Thank you again for attending our presentation and have a great day.
Thanks, Val.
Thanks, Tom.